I believe, I wasn't here, but I more than believe, I know, because I looked on YouTube, and I know that we started with integration. So really, we're talking about developing a fit mind, and integration being this first great stage in developing a fit mind. And I know that you were introduced to this term called prapancha, which is like mental proliferation, the way the mind just kind of spreads out, associates, kind of the way we can be at the mercy of our minds. And we talked about how you can't think your way out of that state, but the key is just always coming back to our physical experience, and the 3-minute breathing space being a really good way to practice with that. So another aspect of integration is like realizing that we have an effect on the world. It's kind of growing up. Integration kind of means growing up. And when we're not growing up, when we're immature, I think that's almost like a definition of immaturity, is not realizing that we have an effect on the world. And I've got a lovely little example of this. One of my nephews, I've got quite a few nephews and nieces, coming from a big family. One of my little nephews is half French, so he lives in France. His mum, my sister, is Scottish. His dad is French. So he's grown up in France and grown up bilingual. And this little incident happened when I think he was about 4. So there was a big family party back in Scotland. My whole family were gathered, loads of kids. And Roman, my little nephew, he was fluent in both languages. One amazing thing is how they're distinct. I can't really totally understand that, but they're distinct, the languages in his mind. So if you asked him a question in English, he'd perfectly understand, but he'd answer in French, unless you told him to answer in English, in which case he'd answer in English. So what happened was, I was inside the house and my sister had a big garden. All the children were playing. But little Roman, he was just wandering around looking quite miserable and quite confused and quite lost. And eventually we realised that what was happening was all the other children were speaking to him in English, and he was answering in French. And of course they couldn't understand, but he couldn't understand what was going wrong. He thought he was communicating. So he was walking around really puzzled. And then a few weeks later, he phoned up my mum, his gran, and he said very sort of solemnly, he said, the next time I come to Scotland, I'm going to answer in English. So this was like, and I thought there was something about it. It felt like a moment of growing up, that he realised that he was part of what was going on, rather than this confusing thing just happening to him. He was actually an agent in this, and if he was different, the whole thing would be different. And I thought it's quite a good analogy for what we often do. We often find the world really puzzling and really confusing, but we don't realise that we've got agency in that. We think that it's sort of happening to us. So the unintegrated state is thinking that the world's just impinging on us and we've got no agency. So to be integrated is to realise our effect in the world. So that's quite a simple example, just how Roman learned that in order to communicate, he realised his own part in the communication. He realised, speaking in French wasn't going to work because no one could understand. But I think it's a good analogy, if you like, for how we can be, not just with communication, but our whole lives in a way. It's a bit like Maitreya Bandha was saying before the tea break. How we act actually creates our world, and the more grown up we are, as it were, the more we realise that. So So when we talk about integration, we're including that. We're including that aspect as well. We're including the aspect of learning that we can't It's like we can't separate ourselves from our actions. So often we can do that. We do that kind of morally quite a lot. It's like we kind of think there's the real me, and my actions, especially the ones I'm not so proud of, are a kind of aberration of the real me. But actually, that's a false separation. It's more joined up than that. We can't step outside of ourselves like that. We can't detach our actions from. Well, I was going to say we can't detach them from ourselves, but even that makes it sound like there's a real me that has these detachable actions. It's all the one thing, and that's one of the things we're trying to learn, sort of deeply learn. We might see it, we might understand it intellectually, but we're trying to deeply learn that. I had another example for myself, sort of bringing it into a more kind of the ethical sphere, the moral sphere, if you like. When I first learned to meditate here at the Buddhist Centre, I learned on a meditation course. I've been coming along for a few weeks, meditating, learning, trying to practice what was taught. And then after a while, every time I sat down to meditate, I was kind of overcome with a sort of feeling of nausea, of just a kind of feeling of unwellness, of like deep unease, kind of. I thought, oh goodness, well, that's a bit funny, I'm following all the instructions properly. What's wrong? How come I can't meditate? And I went to the person teaching, and I said, oh, something's gone wrong. I'm following these instructions, but it's not working anymore. And the teacher then sent me to talk to one of the people supporting the class, and she said to me, oh, that's interesting. She said, what's going on in the rest of your life? And I thought, what a strange question, I'm asking you about my meditation, what's going on in the rest of my life. I really got, I said, well, I thought it was a strange question, but I thought, well, since she's asking, I said, well, actually, things aren't going too well. I'm actually in a bit of a muddle, like, I don't know, I'm too embarrassed to tell you actually the muddle I was in. Anyway, it was a muddle, which we may draw a veil over, but involved being not very truthful to one party and da-da-da. And she just, and I said, well, I said, but don't see what that's got to do with meditation. And she just looked. She didn't actually speak, I don't think. She just looked at me, and gradually it dawned on me that actually it had everything to do with meditation. The fact that I was finding more and more dis-ease within myself was because, my life was, a mess, really, and I was doing things that I shouldn't have been, and telling lies about it, da-da-da. So then when I sat to meditate, it was more and more incongruent to try and sit and meditate. It's a funny thing. It's like both things happen at once. You actually learning to meditate, or even the simple little 3-minute breathing space, even the bringing your mind out of papancha, it both calms you down, or the effect can be calming, but in a strange way it can also make you more aware of the agitation that's present in your life, like kind of both at once. Do people sort of know what I mean? So it's interesting. We've got this idea of, yes, I'll be more calm, but actually exposes where you're acting in this unintegrated, messy way, So then you realise, I've got some work to do over here. I can't just follow more and more of these meditation instructions and think it's going to be all right. I've got to actually do some sorting out here. I've got to bring this together somehow. And that's what wholeness is. So that it's not thinking, I can have one compartment of my life here where I'm meditating, all lovely, getting all calm, and then meanwhile be like hurting people, being unkind or not being truthful and so on, and that'll be all right. Actually, and well, I'm sorry to say that it actually won't be, and we'll discover that. We'll discover that. So, what I thought we might do, I want to talk about more, but I'm going to get us to do a little exercise together. Well, not to get, sort of on our own together, just to sort of illustrate this a little bit more. So what I'm going to get you to do is you can just sit comfortably, but I'm going to get you to sit comfortably and close your eyes. You can sit in meditation if you want, just be for a few minutes, or just sit. And to close your eyes, and then just tune in to your sense of your body sitting here, your weight of your body on the cushions or chair. Now, what I want you to do is bring to mind a time where you were mean or unkind in relation to someone else. So I want you to think of an incident. Could be something you said or something you did. But just bring that into your mind as vividly as you can. So bring it into your mind in the present moment as vividly as you can. Then just notice how you feel physically in this moment when you bring that to mind. How does it affect you physically? How does it affect how you feel about yourself? And finally, how does it affect your relation to the world at large? Okay, and when you're ready, you just open your eyes again. Just sit at ease again. So let's hear from a few people. We won't have time to hear from everyone, but what that was like. So let's hear from a few people what that was, what the physical effect of that was. When I asked you to bring that to mind, how did that feel in your bodies?
I found myself quite subtly, but my shoulders instantly hunched in a bit, and then my face kind of screwed up a tiny bit, almost as though I was like embarrassed that it happened.
Yeah.
So, I can't believe I said that to someone. So it's kind of it's horrible. It makes you feel a bit disgusted that you kind of did that.
Right, yeah. So quite a strong sense of unease, and you felt that physically in your face and your shoulders. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Sandra.
Like a crumpy, like tension in my belly, like really settled and quite tense.
So, so again, an unpleasant feeling in your belly. Yeah. Anything else with you?
I had quite a strong sense of something being twisted.
Ah,
yeah.
right.
I suppose that's tension as well.
Something inside being twisted. Yeah. Again, sounds unpleasant rather than pleasant. Yeah.
I had the same, exactly the same.
Ah.
And then at the end, it like twisted out.
Okay, oh good.
It's really nice.
Okay, oh good. Right, good. Yeah, so some twisted but then it twisted out. Well, that's interesting, yeah. All right, good. How do people feel about themselves? You already said you felt a bit sort of disgusted almost. How did people feel? Yeah.
It felt a bit like the opposite of integration, because I wanted to hide it, so it's almost like a bit of me put away, separated.
Yeah, right.
I'm not really fully taking me with those actions. So their sense of actually it's not integration, it's the opposite.
Okay, so it felt like what? It's not. What was the thing you said? It's not.
It's almost separating that bit from me, because I don't want it to be me.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, rather than taking on myself fully, it's actually I don't want that bit.
You don't want that bit. Yeah. Sort of put, and even your gesture, you want to sort of push something away. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I think for me it's disappointment was the main feeling, because it was one of those escalating things, and I was telling myself, don't answer back to that, don't do that, and I just felt this thick loop in my stomach, kind of reaching out,
Okay.
and just sort of like biting back, and don't do that. It's horrible.
Okay.
And then there's something back, like be the big person, and then bite back.
Okay, right.
Okay,
Okay, well, it sounds like quite a conflicted state then.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're sort of pulling and pushing with yourself?
That disappointment.
Disappointment.
Because I didn't want to be reacting
Yeah.
in that way, and I was caught in the cause and effects
Yeah.
scenario, and I didn't feel as if I was disappointed, because I thought I had more of a sense of control, restraint.
Okay. Okay, so that's quite interesting though, isn't it? You realise that something about you. Yeah, we like to think we're more in control, don't we? I do as well. Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
I actually found it quite hard to imagine. So I had sort of the screen in my head. I found it quite hard to imagine myself doing it. I was like, no, and I couldn't quite connect with it. So I imagined the person I've been saying things about saying it about me. And then I noticed how I felt about that person, like, oh, they're not a very nice person. And then I clicked back and I was like, no, actually, that is what you're doing. Because I think what a few people said, I had it so separate. That actually helped me think, no, actually, that is part of you as a person. Like, I'm actually really strong. So connecting more with that, like owning it a little bit.
Yeah, so owning it. So
thinking someone else, just watching them do what I'm doing, and then almost watching them.
So it was actually, it sounds like they took effort to actually own it.
Yeah, because I noticed I wasn't connecting with it.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's very interesting, Tanya. Yeah. And what about how we felt in relation to the world at large? Anything on that?
It was interesting. I remember quite vividly one morning when I was super upset about some housey stuff at home. It didn't really have to do with my housemates, but I sort of told myself it had to do with my housemates. And the funny thing was, it became quite absurd that I decided to observe myself a bit, what happened.
Uh-huh.
And the absurd thing about was that everything became so hostile. Like, not only everybody, but like everything. Like, I remember getting on the tube, and everything was like the way the tube doors closed was very hostile. The way the tube doors opened, like, I thought, like, how dare you open it? And like, even like the rustling of the trees or the wind in the trees, like I usually love that, but on that day I was thinking, oh, shut up. It was really strange because I mean, these things didn't have nothing to do with me, really, but like I took it so personally.
Yeah, so that's the thing, isn't it? We take it personally, yeah, and it's very unpleasant by the sound of it, yeah. But very good exercise that you did. So you decided to pay attention.
It was a bit shocking, actually.
Yeah, but I think that's a creative shock, what you're describing, actually, yeah. Anyone else about how they felt in relation to the world at large?
I felt smaller.
Okay.
The world was getting bigger and I was shrinking.
Okay, right. So can you say more about that? Was that pleasant, unpleasant?
No, it was unpleasant.
Yeah.
It was I felt I'd acted incorrectly in the situation I was imagining, and I just kind of, I suppose, was almost like rolling into a ball. You know, I was getting smaller, the world was getting bigger.
So I can see that.
Maybe that's the tenseness.
Yeah, and smaller. Okay, good. Okay, well, thank you. We're going to do one more little exercise now. So close your eyes again. So once again, just coming back again to connection of our bodies with the cushions or chair. Our breath in our bodies. So this time I want you to bring to mind something kind or generous that you recently said or done in relation to another person. It doesn't matter how small, but try and make it a recent thing. So just bring that vividly into your mind, as vividly as you can. So notice how bringing this to mind in the present moment feels physically. How do you feel in your body bringing this to mind? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel in relation to the world at large? And then when you're ready, opening your eyes again. So let's see how that was. So again, how did people feel physically, bringing that to mind? Kind or generous, actually. Yes.
I didn't really notice the first time I thought about the negative thing,
Yeah.
but I realised then that left me feeling quite empty.
Ah.
I was thinking about just, it was saying thank you to someone, I was thinking about positive, and just the word thank you as a philosophical full.
Uh-huh.
But then that made me notice the contrast.
Okay. Okay.
The emptiness.
Yeah. 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 Right. Because in the
It's much more fulfilling than filling.
filling and fulfilling, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's interesting that you notice the contrast. I think that's very, very interesting, actually, that a bit like when my Banda was saying in the announcements, we can almost get used to a low-lying, unpleasant feeling without noticing that there could be something different, actually. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so fullness, anything else physically? Yes,
It's a real
Francesca.
kind of nice sense of calm.
A nice sense of calm, yeah, yeah.
Very kind of settled and peaceful.
Yeah, settled and peaceful, good.
Yeah, I had like at first I thought it was really similar to the first one, and I was like, oh, this is strange. Like a pebble had been like dropped into a pond.
Mhm.
Whereas with the first one, it was like, I felt quite stirred up and it was still with me. This was kind of like, you know, something dropping and something kind of like coming up but then spreading out. And then the more that I stayed with it, the more it kind of rippled out and then like spread out to feel really calm. So oh, maybe it was just kind of getting rid of the previous one, and it was like, you know, yeah, it's quite calming.
Quite calming and lovely, and a lovely image. It sounds like you had quite a visual image with it.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
how it
felt
felt
that-
like a, you know, like a ripple in a pond, just kind of gradually settling down.
Good. Any others about how we felt physically? Yes.
Like a really big sense of openness in the chest. Like really, like it was full of hair and like really like expanding.
Yeah.
Or something. Like
Lovely.
quite,
Yeah, same, sort of warmth, expansive, open. Yeah, a few more nods. And how did people feel about themselves? At ease, yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah, somebody else over
I
here.
was just going to say I had a slightly strange, unexpected response to that because I just felt like I should have done more.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah.
Like that was a nice thing, good, but you could have done more. Really
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
I felt a strange feeling of like fearlessness.
A sense of fearlessness.
Yeah,
Oh, that's very.
interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, what?
Lightness and then like Or the opposite of the one before that is like the cringing and crouching and feeling you're going to be suffocated by the wall.
Yeah.
And this one, it was just strange, like fearlessness.
Fearlessness, I think that's very important actually. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. And maybe that moves us on to in relation with the world, because, you know, how did other people feel in relation to the world at large? Yeah.
I felt more anchored.
More anchored, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the negative thing, perhaps similarly to you, was about things to draw a veil over. But my positive action today was that for a friend's company at lunch because he's having a hard time, and just giving that time to cultivate that relationship and make him feel anchored to some special people.
Yeah. Yeah, and you felt anchored. Yeah, yeah. I like that image. Like you've got a place in the world or something. You know, you're part of the world. Yeah. Any last ones? Yes.
I mean, I kind of, so I didn't really feel very much in the first one.
Yeah.
Or noticed, or couldn't think of an instance of when I had said something.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, in the second one, had a hard time finding a phrase or something that I said to someone. And it just made me realize that actually I'm quite careful with my words around everyone. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect between what I might be feeling inside, thinking about you, versus what I say.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And it's just really struck me.
Okay. So.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So there's some learning there, yeah. Or some, stuff. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So it'd be nice to hear from more people, but I probably should move on. So sort of taking that as a whole. So what that sort of dual set of reflections. What could you take from that? What do you think about doing that? Those two reflections.
You'll feel better if you act well.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like strangely obvious, isn't it? We sort of know it, but it's really. It's so interesting, isn't it? You know, that we kind of laughing because we know it's true, but in another way we don't know it, isn't it? So what else could we take? So we'll feel better if we act well. It sounds like there's general agreement. Anything else we can take from that? Yeah.
Choose to focus your thoughts on negative things, you'll feel bad.
Yeah.
Choose to focus your thoughts on good things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to two more, so I'll go for you here.
I think it's easy to fixate on things that you do in the past that are negative, but I think it's really easy to ignore all of the good that you do in between. And I think for everyone, really, we do a lot more good than we do bad. But I think we kind of spend more time subconsciously remembering or fixating on the negative. I think it's probably more beneficial, as we've just seen.
Yes, I think that is true, and I've got something else to say about it, because I think that is true, and that was why I deliberately said even think of us, even if it's a small generous thing. So I think that is true. Interesting enough, I think we do think of the things we've done that we haven't been pleased with, but we often do it in quite a sort of prapancha type way. So actually, in a sense, we think about them. So it goes round, why did I do that thing? I'm so horrible. But sometimes we don't properly think about them. Do you know what I mean? So I think this exercise, I would say, is thinking about it. It's a kind of. I think you're right. We do think about it. We fixate, but actually, this is to me, when I do this exercise, I'm more sort of squarely looking at what I've done, what's been the effect on me, never mind the effect on other people. So it's a different kind of reflection than the usual way. Does that ring true from people? That often we go round and round, yeah. So let's have one more then, I think. Oh, lots of hands. I think you were next, yeah.
A similar thing actually. I was just going to say that it's reflecting without storytelling. Which is actually, useful, and I kind of try not to do the reflection stuff.
Yeah.
It leads me storytelling, but that was a new way of doing it.
Yeah, so it's a useful thing to reflect without storytelling. Yeah, good. So that's, I think that's good. So yes, we've got the clear thing that if we act in ways that harm other people, it will, we can see that actually makes us unhappy. But then there's the if we reflect, the ingredient is the reflection. So what would life be like if we did that reflection every day, say? Be good. So, and why would it be good? What effect would it have?
I think it would kind of make you conscious.
Yeah.
If you were to be too strange to other people, those can have an impact on them.
Yeah. Yeah. So make you conscious. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of make you a little bit more aware about how your thoughts are affecting the way you feel, and then how you feel about everyone else.
Yeah.
Starting from a little thought, might just gradually spread.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's important to keep the bad things you've done in mind as much as the good things. Like I think somehow what we tend to think is that we need to focus on the good things, a bit like what you were saying.
Okay. Yeah.
It seems to me that
there's a place for both. Yeah.
As well.
And it's in that way properly reflecting, not just getting into, I'm so terrible, papancha type thing. Yeah. So there's that. So there's both. And then it's interesting what you're both saying, that it's making something more conscious. And what word did you use? You said awareness. Yeah. And what effect? Just to take it that bit further. If we were more conscious and more aware, how would our lives be?
More likely not to act in a strange way.
Yeah. I think it's as simple as that, isn't it? We would probably take more responsibility, wouldn't we? We'd actually we'd see that joined upness, because I think when we're not aware, we're doing this, we're detaching, we're thinking we can detach ourselves from what we do, but that reflection, it sort of joins it all up. And that's why when we think about integration, this stage of integration, it includes this. It includes how we act. It includes taking more notice of our effect, and more responsibility for our effect in the world and on ourselves, which is, I think it's got this double thing. It's both, to me, I find that exciting and challenging. Like, it's interesting when I said, what would our life be like if we did this every day? Every single time I do this exercise in a class or something, I say to myself, so better Matty, just do it every day. Just do that every day. Do I do it every day? No, I don't do it every day. I don't do it every day, because I know that if I did do it every day, all those things you're saying, you'd get more conscious. You'd realise the almost kind of glaring simplicity of, the thing. But I don't do it every day because, I think it's because it's easier to blame than to take responsibility. It's easier to just think it's somebody else's fault. I had again an example in my own life. It's something happened ages ago, but I remember it. It was a real little lesson. I was meeting a friend, my friend Vadra Chakshu, who's in Istanbul now. I'm teaching the Dharma. I was meeting him, I was waiting for him, and then he came along and he said, "Oh, hi, Subharamati, how are you today?" And I said, "Well," I was in a great mood this morning. I was really, really well. But then, so-and-so turned up, and, they were just really annoying, and now I'm in a really, now I feel I'm in a rubbish mood now. And he just looked at me and he said, "Well, Subharamati, you obviously weren't as positive as you thought you were." Which was a bit of a kind of, I didn't expect him to sort of say, "Oh, there, that's like," but, he put it completely back on me. It's hard to take responsibility, it's hard to, we want it to be someone else's fault. Well, I do. I want it to be somebody else's fault. But I think what we can start to see is, it's us that we can't take responsibility for ourselves, for our lives. No, it's like facing up to ourselves. That's grown upness. Is facing up to ourselves, seeing. Really facing ourselves. Sort of taking that. It's that sense of agency. Not just thinking that life's something that just is a baffling thing that just happens out there. Really grasping that what we do has an effect on the world and an effect on ourselves. And like both, as I think, some of the examples I've shown are sort of the other side of the coin. And this is, when we talk about morality or Buddhist morality, this is what we mean. We don't mean some sort of moral code being imposed on us from outside. We mean an extension of this stage of integration, or an aspect of this stage of integration. We mean this kind of awareness, this kind of taking responsibility. That if the more awareness we can bring, the more actually change will emerge from that, actually. We will, the more we're aware of the consequences of our actions, the more we will, the more we'll take responsibility for them. It can happen in two ways. Sometimes that can happen. That can be quite spontaneous. Like, for example, I know the very first time I ever meditated, I spontaneously decided to be vegetarian. No one told me to do that. I just by becoming a bit more aware of myself, a bit more in tune with the life around me, I just thought, that's it. I'm vegetarian from now on, and I have been from now on. That was spontaneous. Sometimes it's not so simple. Sometimes we realise that we have to put better conditions into place in order to effect that change. So again, you might have already found that in your lives. Well, even in the home practice last week, seeing that you might have to do things so that you remember, for example, to do your practice. You might have to think, well, I'm going to actually take an action here. Sometimes, that action can be in different, so many different things make the conditions for us to be able to sort of effect the change that we want. We grow more, our sensibility increases, but sometimes we can't rely on that alone. We might have to do something. I mean, coming here is very, very good, because we come here to an environment where other people are also trying to change as well, and it's just simply very supportive to do that. So what I'm going to do now is just give you the home practice, and then I'm going to hand back to Maitreya Bandhu, and you'll see the books of this week appeared on the shrine, and we're going to do a little ritual where we get our books. So here's the home practice for this week. So we're going to carry on with a 3-minute breathing space. If we did manage to carry that on, if we might need to again put something in place to help us remember to do it. So as Maitreya Bandhu says, we can be intelligent about this. So see what we need to help us to do the 3-minute breathing space. So keep doing that 3 times a day. And then we're going to introduce another practice, kind of in the same vein, which is a mindful walk. Yeah. So what can be quite good is to choose a walk that possibly you do anyway for about 20 minutes. So it might be that you have a 20-minute walk within your day anyway, or you might have to introduce that. So that you might introduce it by, say, walking to the next bus stop instead of the other bus stop you usually get, or taking a walk in your lunch break. Sometimes I wonder if lunch breaks exist anymore, but if you are creating that for yourself. And the most important thing in a mindful walk is, I was going to say you're not walking to get anywhere, but that's not strictly true, because you might be. But it's not about it's not about the destination kind of, it's about the journey. It's about paying attention to, well, just that simple action of walking. So like just the rhythm of your walking, your feeling of your feet on the ground, your whole environment, yourself moving through space, but just the sort of myriad of things that are going on around, the sounds, smells, sights. It's like extending awareness into that. It's like having a broad awareness of that simple activity of walking. Probably best to to have a bit of time where you're not listening to something, where you sort of unplug yourself, as it were, just quietly kind of walk along. But it can just be your usual walk as well. It's not that you're trying to kind of walk especially slowly or kind of just have your eyes straight in front of you. You can still look around and walk at your normal pace. It's just you're bringing attention to it, yeah? You're just bringing a broad awareness to that simple activity of walking. So think of either a walk that you do anyway, or think of how you could introduce a walk of up to 20 minutes. That's enough, up to 20 minutes mindful walking in your day as well. And then, I thought, let's try doing that reflection exercise every day. So I think the end of the day might be quite good for it, because then you've sort of had a day, so you can think, I think maybe, if you've got time, you could do both. You could think of something a bit unkind that you did and something a bit kind. Or you could do one or the other on alternate days, yeah? So you could, that would be fine as well, yeah? But you don't have to do it in the evening, but I just thought in the evening you've kind of had a day to have done something that then you can reflect on and see what effect that has. So it's two things. It's the doing of it, but then it's like noticing, does that affect how you are or not? In a way there's there's no right or wrong answer. You're seeing what effect it has, yeah? So do that exercise. So the mindful walks described in the book, that little exercise is a little extra thing. It's not in the book, yeah? So is that clear, the home practice? Good.